Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our latest talent talk. Focused on, this is a kind of a new format for us. It's called Ask Me Anything, and we're focusing on the subject of candidate activation. My name's Scott McRae, and I'm a co-founder of Candidate ID, and I am delighted to be joined today by three experts from across the spectrum of recruitment and sourcing, and both from an in-house point of view with Rohit, Joshi from Philips, and from an independent consulting and strategy point of view from Katrina Collier, and from an agency point of view, Billy McDiarmid. So we're starting very much today from the basis that we're okay, so everybody is fluent in Boolean and everybody knows their duck suits from their hunters. So it's really, this is really about, the what next. How do we turn, strangers into motivated applicants? We've got the opportunity for participants in in today's talent talk to ask questions. So please, post your questions to on Twitter, #BeHuman or Candidate ID, or directly into the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. But before we start, I'd just like to introduce you to our panel in a bit more detail. So Rohit is EMEA Head of Talent Sourcing for Philips, which is one of the world's leading health technology companies. Rohit's talent sourcing team is focused on the three key segments of digital, quality and regulatory, and R&D engineering to provide the talent intelligence to develop a sourcing strategy, identification and prioritization of talent across industries, building talent pipelines and delivering shortlists for the hardest to fill roles that will accelerate the transformation of Philips. And Rohit's team's role is to get the best talent to help Philips get there faster. Katrina Collier is recognized globally as an expert on social recruiting. Since 2009, she's trained SMEs to global corporates around the world to source their staff on social media, transforming HR and recruiters into certified searchologists. London-based, Katrina is a global trainer and keynote speaker, sharing proven techniques gained from over a decade of full-cycle recruitment and social recruiting experience. Katrina is one of the 100 most influential people in HR and recruiting on Twitter, and her opinion is regularly quoted in SHRM, the Staffing Stream, and Cambridge University Strategies for Success. She writes avidly on the Searchologist Live and is a regular HR and recruitment speaker, including keynotes at SourceCon, Recruit DC, SOSU Sourcing Summits in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and Asia, HR Innovation Summits into the Singapore government. And when she's not on a plane, you'll find her tweeting at Katrina M. Collier on her Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Billy is a talent and sourcing and technology specialist from HR consultancy. Billy's also a member of our advisory board at Candidate ID. He's a specialist in talent acquisition technology and sourcing, and he's got more than 10 years experience implementing technology solutions and candidate attraction sourcing strategies. Billy's specialities include talent mapping, advanced sourcing, and recruitment training. One of Billy's main passions is in improving recruitment by developing strategies that put the candidate first at every aspect of the process. So welcome Rohit, Katrina and Billy. Thank you for joining us today. So first question, which I'd like to start with Rohit, is so how do you engage with someone who's happy in their job and not looking to change?
Thanks, Scott, for having me on the panel. Good question. So when we come across this, I think the most important thing is to make the conversation about the person and not about the job. We have to play to the fact that the person is knowledgeable about his or her own area, is probably an expert in that. Ask for their views and opinions. Now, the problem that a lot of people face is that they don't get a response to an in-mail message or an email. So the first outreach has to be good. It's got to be short, sweet, relevant, and to the point. Most people, at least in my team's experience, are happy to have a chat if we ask them for an opinion about anything that they are considered an expert in. Our job then is to listen more, talk less, don't pitch the job, don't pitch the company, and ask them at the end of the conversation, is it fine to stay in touch? Many times what we also do is we try to get senior hiring managers or business leaders to have impromptu conversations with them, just so that they can exchange ideas. There's no pressure about a role or a position there. Talk to them about staying in touch for a later point. If you have a CRM, that's great. You can include them in that and send them relevant articles, but don't spam them. And reconnect with these folks after a defined time frame. It's important to make yourself and your company easy to find. You have to nurture them, and probably when they're ready to talk to you for a role, they'll then reach out to you. During these conversations, many people get sold as well, and I've seen quite a few things converting. They don't want to talk about a job, but by the end of it, they're pretty happy to talk about positions. So that's what I would do.
I completely agree with that. Sorry, it's Katrina butting in, because you're talking about what's in it for them, which I think some people kind of feel uncomfortable about. They kind of go, but I'm Philips, you know, I'm calling you from Philips. You should want to hear about my company, but it's not. It's about them and what they're doing and their expertise. And you should already know that before you're making the approach as well in this day and age.
Yeah, and I think this is Billy now speaking. I think what's really important about Rohit's approach is you're not including any information in the first instance that's going to put off the potential candidate from talking. You know, one of the big mistakes, particularly with an agency, that I see is that we're very quick at going, we've got a job, we want to talk to you about a job, this is a salary, this is the information about the job. That immediately puts off the vast majority of candidates unless that candidate is currently really keen to move roles. You're also in danger of giving information that will make the candidate, you know, self-select and pull themselves out of any potential process too.
Great. Okay. So that naturally leads into another question, which I'd like to ask Katrina is, so why do you think people are becoming more and more unresponsive?
I think for a lot of what we've just been saying, technology has allowed us to become really, really lazy. So it's fantastic because obviously we can find I think there's 3 billion people that are now on the internet. So you have the capacity to find people really easily because of technology, but it's created the noise and the laziness. So I can run a two-word search on a platform, be it on LinkedIn or on Indeed or wherever, and I can mass mail. And I can just, basically spam people. And again, all about stuff we've just been talking about, all about the job and the immediacy and the urgency and all this kind of stuff without taking any care. And I just think people just got fed up and they're just like, well, you're not making any effort, you're not caring, it's just noise, 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 noise. People just aren't opening their in-mails or their emails. They're just ignoring stuff. It's just the lack of care. That the recruiters and the sources out there who are making the extra effort and using technology to uncover bits of information, and as I keep saying, be human with it, are of course succeeding because, as Rohit was saying, they're talking about the company first and them and their experience and like what they're looking for, not the immediacy of that singular opportunity. So I just think that that's part of the issue. And Billy was also right when he was talking about the agency side. I trained an agent last week, and he just said, I didn't realize writing urgent PHP requirement in the subject line wasn't a smart move, because to him it was just logical that it was urgent. So I just think it's just people just haven't been caring enough, whereas they have an opportunity to do so and really stand out now if they just make that little extra effort. And it is minutes, it's not hours that it takes to do that.
What we're also really guilty of doing as well, and Katrina's 100% spot on the laziness side, because we don't think about the best platform that people actually use. So let's take the candidate word out of any conversation, and let's just think about technology that people actually use and want to use. If you're thinking about, I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of people listening have probably got Facebook Messenger, for example, set up on their mobile and have got it set to receive alerts, and they probably use either Facebook or WhatsApp for group chat with their friends, with their family. That's a really convenient way of communicating with people. So, email is a really good way of doing it, but it's not going to be ideal for every person. People may prefer to communicate in another way, and also about people's availability. They might be more available, at certain times of the day via a certain channel. Are they more likely to be? I've found Sunday night, for example, and certainly in the UK, Sunday night's brilliant because, if you time any outreach to, after 7:30 or 8 o'clock, the kids are in bed, parents are generally settling down to catch up on Netflix or Amazon, and, they're probably sitting with their laptop or their mobile device in front of them as well, and they will see emails coming through, whereas, during a normal working day or during, the working week, during the evenings, they're probably too busy to pay attention to correspondence that's coming through.
You're also going to get that emotion, aren't you, on a Sunday night when people are starting to dread the week ahead? Like, I love the morning.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sunday night with that emotion. How awesome is that? Oh, I'm stealing that off you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I completely agree with both with Katrina and Billy. I think recruiters and sourcers don't put themselves in the shoes of the candidates. The thinking is very one-sided, and they don't stand out. Back to Katrina's point, mass mailing is just an easy way to be forgotten. Why should the person on the other side of the email or the tweet give you time of day? What is the value that you're going to add to him or her, or what's the perceived value? I think people need to think about that. They need to think of themselves as candidates once. How would have been approached, right? And probably use that. Better chance of success in my view.
I've got a question that's come in, great question that's come in on Twitter on #BeHuman, which is, I've heard a lot of chat about artificial intelligence taking over sourcing, assessment, even selection. Will Robo-Recruiter fully take over one day? So I'm going to ask Katrina that first because it came in on #BeHuman.
Over my dead body, Ben Gladhill. Sorry, I've got Twitter open in front of me. No, I mean, it was beautiful because I got to give the final keynote at SourceCon, and the whole of the SourceCon conference was about artificial intelligence and robotics. And of course, look, it's wonderful, and if you can use that to get a better picture of, this is what Billy is like on LinkedIn, but this is what he's like over here in his real life, and combine it into a conversation to use, great, fantastic, use your tech for that. But we all have emotions. I mean, we just talked about Sunday night being, you've calmed down, your head's gone into the week ahead. Well, what emotion are you feeling? Are you looking forward to it or not? You can't get an emotion with artificial intelligence as yet. So I don't think that Robo-Recruiter is going to take over, because people feel a certain way. They the really good recruiters, when they preferably pick up the phone and talk to someone, they're excited about the company and the opportunity, and listening to that person and being curious and finding out stuff about them, and all of those nuances that you just don't get from robotics. And the other example I gave at SourceCon was, I am an open book on social media. This is my world. This is what I do, social media recruitment. So I'm open book. But there are things about me that I don't even think to write on social media that will stop me working from you. There are reasons that I can't work in an open plan office, for example. If you don't talk to me, you won't know that. So that's the other thing. So it's the emotion, and then there's the peculiar things that we all have as human beings that no amount of artificial intelligence, in my opinion, will ever replace us. But I'd love to hear what the others think.
There's always going to be industries, job types, where it will be completely automated, and there already is a technology that's doing that for certain types of roles, where there's far less I'm trying to think of the right word, far less variety in the types of skills and types of personality perhaps required, and that's already happening. That's inevitable. It will never completely, fully replace, replace it, because people want to talk to people. Let's remember how important, in fact, I was training someone on this morning, and we when we talk about the numbers of people who we recruit, on a monthly basis, we treat it, we are sometimes guilty of being fairly transactional about it because it's very high volume, but it's not transactional to the person who has been unemployed for 6 months and who we've just found a new role for. It's not transactional for the person who we've just found a new job for, who's cut their commuting time every day by, an hour and a half. So that's the people like people, because recruitment is a really important and life-changing event for people. The vast majority of our candidates, when they get a new job, it will impact on their day-to-day life greatly, for the better. And candidates need, people need to deal with people during that process.
We've forgotten that somewhere, haven't we?
Yeah. So my 2 cents. This is something which is inevitable. It's going to come. I think it will force sourcers and recruiters to up their game. Things like just creating long lists, going to websites and getting some names. There are tools that are going to be bots who will do this for you. But just like the first question, what do you do with someone? You need a person to have that conversation. If you need someone to convince someone to come in for an interview or to take the job, again, you need a person there. I think sourcing is going to move more towards a talent advisory kind of role, along with also getting the resumes on the table. Getting the resume bit, the robots can help, the chatbots can help, but the advisory piece, the convincing piece, getting the emotion through, it's a people-centered process, and I don't think that's ever going to change. You don't want to work for a robot, right? You want to work for a person.
Yeah.
I've got a question from myself here, which builds off the first question to Rohit around the engaging people that are currently happy with where they are. So the passive, people talk about the higher quality passive, potentially active audience, and engaging them. But there's and how you balance the business need. So there are roles that you have to fill now. There's that urgency from the business to get them. But how you balance that versus the candidate, the candidate's need, the people's need, where they're interested in the story. How do you balance those two, Rohit?
Okay, good question. I think the first thing is come with a lot of facts, a lot of data, and give the business a reality check. Many times they come with, I need this position filled urgently, and why can't we do it in 1 week or 2 weeks? And yes, we can, but let's get a contractor in the meantime before we hire someone permanent. You need to give them options and give them a time frame. If it's a people position which needs to be filled, and if it's a tough role, it's a niche skill, and we know that the hiring times are long, we need to look at a plan A or a plan B. Let me give you a classic example. There are certain skill sets. I'll take guides technology, which is extremely difficult to find. People are very expensive. We were trying to find these people for a really long time, and we're paying on nose for contractors, and we wanted them to get. Later on, we realized $1,000. The solution that we finally gave to people was people who are good at what they do, who have the learning ability, and train them up. The most important in that was presented a lot of showed the business what the effort is going in, what's the solution, got them on our side, and then gave them a solution at the end of it. It's all fine and well to present it, but if there's no output, then you need to have those options.
Is it just me that can't hear Rohit? Or
Yeah, Rohit, I was just going to say, I just sent you a message to say that your audio comes in and out a little bit. Just so you're aware from your maybe your mic settings or something. Great. Thanks for that. So next question. So this is for Billy, and I think there's definitely a kind of tipping point where if you're trying to get hold or get a response from somebody and you're not getting a response, then there's a tipping point where that becomes spam or hassle, or where you start going backwards rather than forwards. With that in mind, so the question for Billy is, how can you get a response from someone who's ignored you, twice, thrice, or more?
It's coming from an agency background, as much as we do try, we don't always have the luxury of being able to pipeline, which means we are very reactive. When we get a new requisition, and our turnaround times need to be immediate, and because we do have a sizable, well managed CRM, then we can be responsive, and we can pull active job seekers from that. But additionally, we are also supplying for pretty much every single job. Actually, when we look at the stats that we take on, we're also sending newly sourced candidates, and often that makes up the bulk of the workload when we're taking on a new job. It's difficult because we do differentiate ourselves, or the thing agency recruiters in particular should be doing is differentiating themselves from every other single recruiter message that comes through, and we do that in the first instance by building personalization as much as we can into every single message. So when I was recruiting for a client recently, I was recruiting for a content specialist with one of our team, and we're in one case we really looked at the type of personal content the potential candidates were creating, and built that into the outreach. So we're giving the candidates confidence that we're not just spamming in the first instance. So that's going to increase the chances that we're going to convert, first of all, which should reduce the problem of being ignored at some point. Anyway, so we're gathering more information at the outreach stage as possible, and building that into every type of message that we're sending out. The second thing though is if someone, this does my head in actually a little bit, if someone doesn't reply to, for example, email outreach in the first instance, and you try email again and it still doesn't work, actually why would you, in many cases, why would you send another email again? Why aren't you trying to find another method of contacting them? Why aren't you trying to find, their mobile telephone number? Why aren't you trying to find their Facebook Messenger or their Facebook account? Why aren't you trying to find their Twitter account? Why aren't you trying to find their work telephone number? We're really, really guilty at times of forgetting about the telephone. So let's put the telephone to the top of the list as sourcers and recruiters. Let's make sure that we're very aware, and we're very conscious of that, and we're very conscious of, like I said earlier, what technology candidates are actually using. So change your channel, use something a little bit different. And then the third thing is, if you are using an automated campaign, if you are using email for it, then you should be in a position, whether that's using Candidate ID or whether that's using another tool, you should be able to keep a close eye on the candidates, the prospective candidates' activity to your outreach. So what time are they opening your emails at? When are they most likely to be at a point where your email is top of their inbox. You know, if candidates are anything like, you know, I'm sure the vast majority of people that are on this call at the moment, you're receiving hundreds and hundreds of emails, but you probably only dip into your email perhaps 3 or 4 times a day. So when is your prospective candidate most likely to be dipping into their emails, and when is your message most likely to be within the top 2 or 3 emails that are sitting within that person's inbox? I think if you bear all those tips in mind, A, you're going to reduce the chances that you know, any second, you know, or third follow-up is actually required in the first place. But then if you do have to move on to a second or third follow-up to get the candidate's attention, then you're not going to, you're differentiating yourself, you're making yourself look different to the prospective candidate, and in our experience, they are going to be more likely to engage with you.
I completely agree with what Billy just said, which is hilarious because I teach social media recruitment, so most people think I'm all about the email. But I'm not. I'm all about, why don't you find out all that information and pick the phone up like as the first way to get in contact with somebody. Why not? You're ringing them about a job or a career opportunity. It's pretty exciting. And if you've done your research, you can get their attention. And I just think there's some basics that's just got to go into that. You know, the understanding that they might be in an open plan office, or it mightn't be a great time for them to talk and things like that. But then if it's not the phone and we're talking about the email, are you addressing it correctly? I mean, maybe because I'm old, I don't know, but my like pet peeve, if you don't write "Hi Katrina," I delete your email. And they've just written Katrina at the searchologist in the to box. Why can't they go "Hi Katrina"? Like, I just don't think there's any excuse for like not showing that courtesy. Not having a proper email signature on it as well, which I know again sounds trivial, but I'm like, well, is this a spam email then? Why haven't you put your proper details on there? Why isn't there a link that can show me some recommendations, or give me a link to your website, or just give me some social proof of who you are? Stuff like that as well. You know, watch the haying. I don't think that, again, it's a generational thing, and it depends what industry you're in. Hay mightn't be a nice way to message someone as well if you're going that route. But completely agreeing with Billy, if you try to email a couple of times and that's not working, and you can't get them on the phone, well, how about, you know, you mentioned Messenger or WhatsApp. What about sending a little video? Because who is going to resist playing a little video that comes through as a message request on Messenger, for example? You could, you know, you can even say, like, I know this is an unusual way to get in touch, but I wanted to stand out, or whatever it might be, but just something a bit quirky that will help you stand out. But then I think on the back of that, you need to make sure, if you're doing any of this, that you do look like a recruiter worth talking to, or a sourcer worth talking to. And by that is, you send me that message, Rohit sends me a message, I am going to Google him before I reply. I'm going to Google before I call back. So what am I going to find? You know, your bio is filled out. Do you have an approachable looking profile picture, which sounds really strange, but so many people look angry in their profile pictures. You know, have you just given your Facebook an audit so that what you're showing there is what's a good reflection on you? If you've got a name like mine, you're easy to find. So those sorts of things as well. And also your company. If you've got in touch with me and you're Rohit from Philips, right, quick search of Philips, Glassdoor, Indeed, Facebook, all those reviews are shocking. I don't want to talk to him. So it's like it's giving yourself a spruce up as well. I think that's the other side that comes into it. Sorry, I had a rant.
Beautifully. So nothing really to add.
That's lucky because we can't hear you, honey. What's going on with his audio?
I've got a question which it comes into what Billy picked up around, you know, personalization. And you know, so one aspect of you know, dear Katrina, and dear Katrina, based on what I know about Katrina, you know, and making it personal from a kind of state, you know, from what your interest might be. But this another dimension of personalization is based on the person's stage of interest. You know, at what stage are they in their kind of education or decision making journey? I mean, if they're just kind of at the stage about interested in learning about the company and the culture and what it's like to work there, then, you know, being able to share content, you know, that's relevant to that. If they're interested in, you know, what it's really like, you know, to work there, and what are the, you know, specific details around the opportunity or the package or anything like that, then being able to share content with them, that's based on that stage as well. And for us, that's always a really important part of personalization. So that's open to the panel if anyone wants to add to that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that's really important, and for me, I try and put it into. I'm probably oversimplifying this a little bit, but I'm thinking about things in two different ways. I'm thinking about either do I want immediate attention from a candidate, or do I want to kind of nurture the candidate and keep them warm to the HR consultancy brand. And when we need attention from a candidate immediately who perhaps hasn't been nurtured, then we go down the personalisation route, which involves more personal information about the prospective candidate. But whereas when we're nurturing, we're sharing things that talk about, we don't talk about because we're an agency, we're not talking about our working environment, but we're talking about workplace issues. So this week has been is in the United Kingdom, it's Mental Health Awareness Week. So all this week, all of our content that's going out on all our channels is videos and white papers and blogs around mental health and the workplace. For example, and we know from the campaigns that are going out, we know who. We've got our data segmented so that we can see who is active within the certain divisions that we operate in, who's responding well to those posts, so that we can, we do supply that information to our recruiters, and our recruiters know from their pipeline who is actually engaging with the content. But I think if you're an agency recruiter and you need something immediately, then the number one way for me is personalization.
So from an in-house point of view, I think what has worked for us for the really tough roles is when we have got hiring managers the phone and talk to certain interesting candidates themselves, rather than a recruiter. It's all about nurturing talent and talking to them about their experience and having a general conversation without pressure. We have seen that has yielded us good results down the line.
Great. Okay. So next question. So this is for Rohit. So how do you engage with talent that's not active on LinkedIn or social media?
Okay, the short answer is difficult. What we typically like to do, and if we know there's a particular skill set or a particular profile that's not really active on LinkedIn media, we interview those guys. Hopefully we'll have a bunch of them within the company. Their habits. What kind of publications do they read? What kind of meetups or websites? Can we use that information to our advantage? Who are the influencers? If we know all that, then can we link ourselves to one of these organizations? Can we get some contact details from those organizations? Some of them are happy to share. But it's important for us to be seen in those circles. Referrals help a lot because for folks who are not really active on social media, we then look to map out target list of companies. That's what has worked for us in the past. The other side is stakeholder management. So we do let the business know that this is something which is not easy. It's going to take time. We do have requirements. These guys, so that's what we do.
Yeah, so I think there's sort of your microphone comes and goes a little bit, Rohit, but got the majority of that. Katrina, have you got any? It's probably a little bit out of your area of expertise, but have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, no. So I think from what I caught of it, and which wasn't much, I'm afraid. So I am a big believer that you have to become known, liked, and trusted. So you will happily get to the offline people if you are known, liked, and trusted by the people that are online and that you are interacting with. So, you know, the more professional you are, as we've been talking about, sharing great content, sharing stuff that's of interest and relevant, showing that you're all about them and interested in them as opposed to all about you and that immediate opportunity, will help you get that trust. And I always say, for example, Doris, who lives in number 79 of my road, is a science teacher. And if I like you and I trust you and you happen to say I need a science teacher, I'll go, Doris, number 79, she's nowhere to be seen on social media. Here's her phone number. And I would happily pass the referral over. And I did hear Rohit mention Meetup. I see a lot of my clients running their own meetups. And therefore, not as in client name Meetup, but as in technology or interest or whatever it is, Meetup in whatever location, and bringing people in and having guest speakers in and, you know, getting some sponsors in to throw some beer and pizza at it. And that way, that will attract a wider remit of people as well, because, you know, Billy might book to go to the meetup and go, oh, hey, mate, come with us. This looks really cool, and bring a colleague who's not active on social media anywhere or isn't using the internet to share their stuff. So that's the other way as well, which I think he mentioned, but I couldn't quite hear it. So I don't know. Oh, is Rohit dialed in again? Oh, yay, we might be able to hear you now.
Hi guys, is this better?
Yes.
Yeah, that's better, Rohit. Great.
Sorry, my computer died on me at the last minute. Technology. Okay. Going to Katrina's point, I completely agree to what she said. You need to be someone who's trusted, and the most important thing is try to get into their influence circle. If you can figure out who is the guy that these guys listen to, which are the conventions, the meetups that they go to, get yourself associated with those organizations and be known in those circles. That helps. These are not quick wins. They take time, and that's something that you also need to know. You need to let business know. It also helps that your hiring managers and your business leaders really are with you when you're trying to find these people, because they tend to trust their own community more than recruiters or sources.
The other thing is to work with something we're starting to do quite successfully is to identify partnership opportunities, and I'm not talking about commercial partnership opportunities. You know, we have those in place, so we sponsor, you know, we do the obvious things like sponsor the key awards that take place in the sectors that we operate in, for example. But we've started to identify, you know, within each sector, the maybe top 2 or 3 businesses that we want to partner with when it comes to content. So whether that's a leading engineering company, a leading firm of solicitors, a leading firm of a leading charity, actually, the one this week that we're working on, and starting that partnership process with joint branding, because, as you know, Katrina was 100% right there when it came to the authenticity side. And authenticity as a person can be quite easy to build, but as a brand, a way of actually building authenticity is associate yourself with other trusted brands, you know, brands that have already got some kind of weight within your sector. If you're working in-house, then that can work. You know, you're not going to be able to partner with your competition, you know, on this. But what about your supply chain? Who's your suppliers who are going to be working with businesses that employ the type of candidates that you're going to be looking for? You know, map that out. Think about where these opportunities are going to come for authenticity, not just face-to-face and person-to-person, but brand-to-brand. That's working very well for us this year.
Can I ask you something on that, Billy? Sorry, I know Scott's meant to be doing these questions, but, you know. When I talk to agencies about this, and I'm like, the opportunity is with straight up, so there's that trust built, there's sort of like this resistance. And then when I start talking about what you've just talked about, you're calling it co-branding, which is even cooler, but sharing their stuff, getting input from them, having stuff to be able to put on social media. They're like, oh, but people will work out that I'm working with that client and then they'll go after my job. But you clearly don't have that fear. So if you got, like, why don't you have that fear?
If your relationship is strong enough with your client, then you shouldn't worry about that, because it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter, you know, your client, You know, if you're in a position where you can get your client to co-brand with you, they're always going to come to you. You know, yeah, do you know what, Katrina? It's a really competitive market, particularly in the UK. You know, we try and work on a sole supplier basis. We try and work exclusively, but a lot of the time we are in competition. But we know our relationships are strong enough that we know we're going to get the business. If our competition want to try and get it, good on them, go for it. But the other thing is our delivery is better. We're better than them at what we do. So we're you know, our chances of success are far higher. So there's a little bit of arrogance in that, which you know, perhaps this came across, but actually it's more about confidence, strengthen relationship, make sure your relationships are deep enough, and actually see when you get the work on, make sure you deliver.
Yeah, completely agree.
Okay, so I've got another question for Billy. So what's the best method to reactivate old candidates?
So this is a really challenging one for agencies, because I think it was Katrina had said earlier on, you know, about the spam problem, urgent PHP developer requirement, emails being sent out constantly. So strip it right back and think about the actions that you need to take to start to build trust with those candidates that you've you know, previously engaged with. So there's a couple of different things we look at. We want to, you know, build a value exchange with candidates. You know, we want it to be reciprocal. We want candidates to get value from us, and we want you know, us to get value from the candidates. We want to build moments with the candidates that are actually full of trust, you know, so we're giving them information, giving information away to them that's valuable to them, that's insightful and demonstrates that we know that we're actually, you know, that we actually know what we're talking about. And the third one is demonstrating our values through it as well. So we use those three principles to create content that's pushed out, you know, through the various channels to rebuild or build that trust with people who we've spoken to in the past, who in all honesty may have had a bad experience with us in the past. You know, that's we get it, you know, it does happen. It's just how we handle it. Moving forward, that's the most important thing. And once we've built that trust, actually, do you know what? Let's make it easy for candidates to update their details with us. Let's not ask for a CV. Let's not ask for people to fill out an application form or a registration form. You know, actually give me, you know, for us, there's 4 key bits of information that I want. What's your name? What kind of work are you looking for? What location do you want to work in, and what's your mobile number? That's all I need from the prospective candidate. So we used, you know, at the moment we're using Typeform to do that because it's really, really easy. I know there's tons of other landing page solutions out there that are just as easy as well. The candidate can fill that in, you know, 25 seconds. We get all the information we need and we're re-engaged with them. So that's worked particularly well for us.
Rohit, same question to, you know, experience of, you know, reactivating kind of old candidates that might be languishing in the ATS?
Right. So for one, what we did was we moved it to a candidate CRM. We use Avature as a tool. We entered all the details from the candidates and had an outreach with them, saying that would you be interested to know things about the company, about the domain, about the industry? And more than 80% responded saying yes, even though we didn't have a job for them. Then we started sending them targeted messages, probably once a quarter, giving them some interesting news, some interesting tidbits, some nice reports which will add value to their work as well. That helped us constantly be engaged with the talent pool, and it has yielded as a result. We started doing this about 6 to 8 months ago, and in the first quarter of this year, so from say Jan to March, more than 30% of our hires were actually these old pipeline candidates that we have been engaging for the last 6 to 8 months. So if you have a CRM that can be used, my suggestion is definitely do that. Just ensure that you send people relevant information and don't spam them.
Great. So I've got, I mean, we are coming close to the end of time. So I've got a couple last questions. So, but this one's for Katrina, and there's a few wrapped up in this question. So, Katrina, so what exactly do you mean by #BeHuman? Okay, we've covered bits of it, so stuff that we haven't covered already.
Yeah.
And what, but isn't, within the same question, isn't human time the most expensive aspect of recruitment? So we have this conflict between the needs of the business or the drive for automation and be human.
Yeah. Okay, so I started the Be Human because, and actually someone else has mentioned this earlier, we are not a candidate, we are not talent, we are not a techie, we are not, we are human beings. So could we get back to remembering that? I mean, I always giggle because I always get people saying to me, oh, Facebook's my personal and LinkedIn's my professional. But we are a mix of all of that, and we were that before the internet appeared. We were just a mix of stuff that we take to work, and somewhere along the line we've sort of tried to split it out, and then we've tried to bring it back, and then we've given everyone buzzwords. And like, let's just get back to remembering that people are people. They're completely unique. And what Billy or Rohit needs to do their job is completely different to what I need or you need. And that's just, we need to treat people as people. So that's where that sort of came in. Yeah, Adam, thanks for this question about the most expensive aspect. Yes, of course it is. However, what is running the company? It isn't the logo or the branding or the finance department or the technology. It is the human beings within that company. So actually it is so essential that we are hiring the most important people. But where you can use your automation is like your fantastic tool that automates the marketing and keeping in touch and keeping people warm, for example, or automating the diary booking system. I put Acuity scheduling onto my website, and it's brilliant. People just come in and they go, oh, I want to talk to Katrina at that time, boom, book, done. You could be using that to schedule interviews and follow-ups with hiring managers, like automating the right part so that you can free up some time to use it for that wonderful, brilliant sourcing that allows you to be human with it, if that makes sense. Like uncovering the extra information and being really personal. So it's just about how you use it, I guess. I hope that answers his question anyway.
Rohit, anything to add to that?
I agree to what Katrina says. Technology should be an enabler. So the stuff that you talked about, scheduling an interview or finding the resume, technology can do that for you. But the human aspect of having the conversation, understanding what the person on the other end of the phone really wants to do in his or her own job, and how can you give them an opportunity and could it be mutually beneficial for you, is something which people are going to do. A robot is never going to be able to do that. And sourcers and recruiters need to remember that and not be so worried about technology. If they do their job well, come across as advisors and give people an opportunity, I think that's fine. We'll be fine. We don't need to be worried about technology as much. It helps us do our job better rather than takes jobs away.
Really?
Yeah, I completely agree with both Katrina and Rohit. Let's just make it easier for people to talk to people, because we all love talking to people. Do you know that's one of the most important things in our day-to-day life. So use it as a method. Whether it's video, whether it's calendar tools, whether it's application tools, whatever it is. Let's just make it easier for people to get to the point where they can talk to people. And going back to what Katrina's saying about Adam's point on Twitter about recruiters are the most expensive part of the recruitment process. That's because recruitment is the most important process in any business. It's without their people, businesses for the time being anyway, businesses can't meet their targets, their objectives, their budgets. So let's not forget that the reason why it's an expensive thing is because it is so important to businesses.
Can I just say something on that robotics thing as well? I was working back in the bank back in the day when they brought in automatic teller machines, because I'm that old, and there are still tellers in the bank. Okay, there are a lot less of them. I'm not denying that for a minute, but it hasn't completely got rid of the people element of banking. And it's exactly the same at the supermarket. Sure, you've got self-checkout, which I happen to love, but I know tons of people who hate it and will always go to a human being to put their groceries through. So even though we're going on about, oh, robotics will take over eventually, but will it? Because we are human and we like that human connection that Billy's been talking about, picking that phone up, hearing someone's voice.
Even Amazon have still got, you know, if I've got an issue or need to talk to someone, then it's really easy for me to talk to someone at Amazon. You know, I can either do it by, you know, by chat, or I can pick up the phone. So even, you know, arguably one of the most automated, you know, retailers that exist, you know, makes it very, very easy for you to speak to a human being. You know, so you're absolutely right on that, Katrina.
Oh, and I'd agree with that on, oh God, what's that taxi app we all use? Oh God, it's gone out of my head. Uber, for example.
Uber,
so I had an issue with an Uber, tweeted it, and a human being was back in touch with me in seconds. Same thing, even though that's so automated, because they're still about the personal experience.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think Amazon's a cracking example for, you know, an organization that's so much automation, but if you want to talk to somebody or you have an issue, then it's really, really easy to talk to a human. I think a bank that's brilliant at that is First Direct. I think they've got an internal policy that, you know, someone's got to pick up the phone within 3 rings, and
Blimey.
so and they do. It's amazing. They do. So I think that's
well, they get. Not anymore, they don't, because I'm a customer of First Direct, and they don't anymore, believe you me.
They didn't know your phone number. Don't answer.
I think that's a great topic, strategic, kind of big topic to finish on. But I've got one last practical, tactical topic. It's a question that's come in from Dawn, and this is probably a slightly more fun one to finish on. So Dawn's question is, what creative subject lines have you used to get the candidate to open your email / you know, LinkedIn connection message, whatever? So what creative subject lines have you used successfully? I'll start with Billy.
Oh, here's a good one. This was used in the example I was talking about earlier on when we were attracting creatives for a content role. This candidate liked, on the side, they like to write horror stories as well as you know, writing commercially as well. So my content line was my opening line was the candidate's name, with recruitment isn't the horror story that you actually might think it is. So and that worked all right.
Rohit?
I don't know if it's creative. I guess from a Philip's point of view, a lot of the stuff that we do helps save people's lives. So one of my sources had written a very interesting one. He had written to someone saying, "Want to save 1 million lives? Talk to me."
Oh wow!
Wow,
that's a good one.
Katrina?
I just feel lame in comparison now. No, I'm not giving mine. We're ending on that one because it was too good. But I mean, I've just done things like I've always, I mean, like you guys have already said, use their name, use the word you, why are you so powerful, and throw an interest. You know, I saw someone earlier and we were talking about, you know, they like ale, so why not use the name of an ale that's local to the area? You know, I know it sounds strange, but anything that's going to pique someone's interest enough that they keep reading. But those first few lines also matter. So once you've got them past the subject, what are they seeing in the preview pane as well?
Brilliant. Well, look, we're going to wrap up there, and we're, you know, well past the 45 minutes mark. So I'd like, you know, Rohit, Katrina, Billy, thank you so much for joining us on today's Talent Talk. We will make the on-demand version available as soon as we've got it. And, you know, obviously, if any of the participants have got any questions that they'd like to ask the panel directly, these guys are pretty easy to find, you know, on LinkedIn, so you can do that. Or if you'd like an introduction, just drop me an email, and happy to introduce you personally. So once again, great 45 minutes, and very, very insightful on how we can turn, you know, strangers into motivated applicants. And thanks again for sharing all your insights.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.